If you've got your advisory board, you can migrate it into a more fiduciary board or another kind of structures on your own. Or if you're getting more funding from outside, you may be forced into different structures. If you're in a private funding equity arena, they're going to insist your new investors, maybe they get 1 or 2 board seats. So by the time you get through Series D, you might well have a board of directors that has got 3 asset managers on it. And typically at that time, they may decide they need a new CEO, new entrepreneur, new starter. So my advice, if you are building with external capital and you need that capital to keep growing, make very sure you do some due diligence on your new partners. You can't just accept the money if you have any options at all. If you've got 2, take a look at them. Ask others who they've worked with, what they're like on a board. Because the characteristics of these investors typically vary dramatically, from those that are reasonably benign and will let you run your company and grow your business to those that are really short-term, kind of a slash and burn. But they all are congenial, they all look very good, and they might write you that check. So if you have an option and you're building your business using external funding from various PE and VC players, make sure you check them out as directors and as co-owners of your business. You'll be very sorry if you don't. And the statistics clearly show that above level D in your financing rounds, you may well be out of a job and out of the company, forced out. On the other hand, if your trajectory is that you're self-funding and you're thinking about growing your board into more of a fiduciary board, where the directors have a responsibility called a fiduciary responsibility to the company, then you're moving into a much more formal kind of a structure. And it might be a good first step towards understanding what it would be like to be running a public company with a fiduciary board in that domain. At least in this case, there's only you to report to or only the other owners. When you go public, you're going to be reporting to your public owners as well. And that's a much more, I think, difficult business. So you can train yourself in the ethics and meaning of a fiduciary business by getting yourself migrated from an advisory board to a more formal fiduciary board. That means you're going to be wanting to think about who's on that board in terms of talent. You're going to have to be formalizing agendas. There's going to be D&O insurance. You're probably going to have to pay some cash for these people. You're likely to be worrying about the briefing papers. You're going to be getting feedback from them on the adequacy of the meetings and whether those meetings returned any value. It's going to go on and on and on. I would guess, as an entrepreneur, you're probably going to invest, I'd guess, 15% of your time now in your board. So you've got to be thinking about getting a return from that board. And this is a really important word choice. Never again, if you can remember it, never again say, how did we spend our time as a board? It's how do we invest our time as a board? Because an investment decision implies a return on the investment. An expense is gone. So I always try to discipline myself to think about a board of directors being an investment decision, a huge one, because you're going to take 20% of your management time for a couple of weeks before the board getting ready for it. Then you're going to have the board meeting itself when you're bringing in the external people as well as your own management team. It's a huge time investment decision. So regard it that way, think about it as an ROI, and that will mean you'll be continually worrying about whether you, as a CEO, founder, entrepreneur, are getting value out of the board. It's quite possible that you will, but you won't if you haven't built it carefully, careful craftsmanship, and if you haven't managed it very acutely. I had somebody from a startup beginning to migrate in this past, it was March, and he said, David, I want to have a fully functioning board by the end of June. I said, that's March, April, May, June. No way. You want to have maybe 1 new director added to your board by the end of June. Give yourself a lot of space, a year or 2, to build this board brick by brick. Every single addition is really vital. And unless you have that careful craftsmanship, you'll be building something that's going to suck a lot of your time away without any return for your investment. So migrating from an advisory structure either into a venture capital structure or into a fiduciary structure is a really important transition for you that you want to give a lot of thought to. And I'll give you some tips in the following videos.